With the number 2 versus the number 1 pound-for-pound fighters in the world competing up against each other this Saturday, Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski, it's a very important fight to determine who is the best fighter in the world. And a lot of people believe that Islam Makhachev, the champion who's going to be defending his belt, should be able to not only beat but dominate Alexander Volkanovski. How would Islam defend his belt up against the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world? Let's dive right into it, man. How does Islam win? Firstly, we already know that Islam Makhachev is the bigger, stronger fighter, gonna be around 10 pounds heavier than Volkanovski, and he has a clear wrestling and grappling advantage. Combining with the size factor, it's really going to give Volkanovski a hard time on not only defending the takedowns, but getting up if he gets taken to the ground. But just merely shooting in the center of the cage may not be the best way Islam gets it down there. There are more efficient ways of doing this. Number 1, if he's able to pressure Volkanovski up against the fence, because the thing about both Islam and Volk is that both of them are easily pressured backwards. So whoever's going to be the one that engages first and pushes the other guy back is going to have the advantage. And for Islam, it's going to be his ability to get Volkanovski closer to the fence in order to shoot a takedown there to create contact, trap him up against the fence using his strength, and either picking up and slamming him just like he did against Thiago Moises, or finding trips and stuff in there like he did against Nick Lentz. He could find trips and throws and stuff like he did against Charles Oliveira, with making it harder to shoot takedowns under Volkanovski to get at his hips because of how short he is. That is not going to matter at all if it's up against the fence. In fact, it might make it even easier for Islam to pick him up and slam him or trip him out. But the way he can get it down in the center of the cage is off of Volkanovski's leg kicks, which he throws very often. He throws them against everybody. He uses his leg kicks to set up his own attacks and feel the range, and Islam Makhachev, as we know already, is excellent at catching kicks. You saw this against Bobby Green, Dan Hooker, and a variety of other opponents he's fought already. And not only that, we've seen Volkanovski get taken to the ground by Brian Ortega, who did the exact same thing, and Ortega was southpaw in that fight. It's the only elite southpaw fighter that Volkanovski has fought, and Islam is another southpaw, so that's a good fight to really look at. Brian Ortega also has a good grappling background, but you could definitely see the difference between Ortega and Islam when it comes to control versus submissions. Islam is all about control first before he goes for submissions, whereas Ortega is all about submissions first. So catching Volkanovski's lead leg kick and transitioning that into a takedown is a great way for Islam to get the fight down anytime in the fight, early or late. Once it gets to the ground, it's hard to really see Volkanovski have any success against Islam Makhachev. He's going to try to reverse the positions. He's going to try to get into the guard and be as safe as possible because he already said that he's going to get taken to the ground. So he's going to try to find a way in the gym now to get back up to his feet, because remember, Volkanovski's not used to fighting wrestlers. He's fought like 2 wrestlers his entire career, so he never really had a training camp against it. We might see something a little bit different out of Volkanovski here that we haven't seen before when he gets taken to the ground. And it's really hard to know exactly what he's going to do. But ultimately, no matter what, because of how much smaller he is than Islam, the lack of experience, the lack of training in that one discipline compared to Islam's Sambo and combat Sambo background, it's going to be really hard to see Volkanovski have much success on his back. And I think, honestly, once it gets down there, Islam is either going to dominate for the whole round, and Volk's toughness to fight out of submissions and try to defend himself as much as possible against the ground and pound is going to allow him to survive until the end of the round, or I can see Islam getting a good position, transitioning right through, and getting a good submission on Volkanovski. So the entire grappling is completely in Islam's favor here. From what we've seen in Volkanovski's fights, there's not much that he can do. But when we talk about the stand-up, Islam's striking can never be underestimated, right? And he's much better than people give him credit for. The fact alone that he has takedown threats allows him to open up his own strikes and land effectively. Even against Charles Oliveira, who is an elite grappler and didn't really care too much about Islam's wrestling, he even got caught on the feet and got dropped. Now imagine a guy that was gonna have to worry about the takedowns. How much more effective can Islam's striking actually be? Well, here's the thing, he will threaten with takedowns. He will constantly feint, just like he did against Bobby Green, and this will cause your hands to drop. That's when Islam's head kicks or even blitzing punches can catch you off guard. Knowing that Volkanovski is a shorter fighter and probably is going to want to keep a lowered stance is going to make it easier for Islam to land head kicks. Because to be honest here, Islam's kicking dexterity is impressive. His round kicks up high come out fast and they're flexible, and he can seamlessly turn them into front kicks. Notice right here how he steps in before throwing the kick, and it looks like he's going to throw a Muay Thai style round kick, but he turns it into a front kick to the body. This can easily come up high and catch the shorter Volkanovski as well. It's a tricky kick, man, and I always give credit to Islam's dexterity when it comes to that. Even if Volk is defending the head kicks, it will offset him a bit, and Islam can turn these head kicks into takedowns when Volkanovski least expects it. And also look at this example when Volkanovski was blitzing into Max Holloway. Max got under the punches and easily could have went for a takedown in that moment, where you can see that Volk's posture becomes very straight up. He has no defense against a potential takedown here. Islam could do the exact same thing, but you also do have to note that Max Holloway is not a wrestler. Volk probably did not expect Max to do anything like that, whereas he would probably expect it from Islam. But at the same time, he can get desperate for the knockout against Islam due to how defensive Islam is on the feet, which can also expose those takedown openings. And that is pretty much the end of the breakdown, man. Not much to really say about Islam. His wrestling and grappling is given the majority of his way of winning this, and it's just a dominant part of the game that doesn't really need much explanation, to be honest. But his way of getting it to the ground, as well as his striking capabilities on the feet, these are the things we have to focus on a bit more when we're breaking this down in his favor. So ultimately, yeah, I think Islam's chances are really high of winning this. Even on the feet, I think people need to give him more credit than he deserves. And if Volkanovski does not, he can also get dropped, man. We're talking about an Islam Makhachev who's also much bigger, probably more powerful, and definitely stronger.